Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Been a little while since I posted. Sorry about that. Just been really busy with life. Um, Had a few challenges, but overcome them, and life's good. So today, for those who don't know, hi, I'm Tessa. I'm a transgender woman who only came out at 45. Just 2 years ago, I came out to myself, and this is my story. As promised in a previous video, I'm going to do a bit of a talk about my daughter, my beautiful girl, um, and just so you understand some of the challenges I've been through with family life, and my kids. The previous video was about my little boy Zach, my beautiful boy. Still love him. I've had a couple of chances to have contact with him, and who knows, in the future we might be able to rebuild our relationship. So Tash, my little girl, the pregnancy wasn't great. There was a lot of challenges, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of morning sickness. She was a challenge from the day she was conceived, I believe. Pregnancy went to 37 weeks. So she was born preemie. Her journey started off really rough. Her pregnancy was quite horrible. Her birth was quite horrible. During the labour process, they were going to do a C-section. They decided, because she was a tachycardic and low blood oxygen, so 200 beats per minute heart rate and low O2 levels, they had to do an emergency extraction. I don't know what the word is, but that's what it ended up as. They had to cut my ex quite brutally to get her out quickly, and they rushed her off and away, and wouldn't let us go with her. They then let us know that her lungs weren't formed properly and she was struggling to breathe, and that she was going to be transferred from our local hospital to the Royal Hospital, which is our big main hospital that had better equipment and better quality staff. We'll question that now, but so she was rushed off. I went and spent the night with my daughter. My partner had to stay in the hospital. She was not right to travel, and needed medical attention. So my ex didn't get the opportunity to have the bonding at the start with my daughter, which is very sad. And I know that it affected her quite a lot. So my baby girl was put into an oxygen humidity crib, where they could keep her O2 levels at a stable rate. So I spent the first night with my arm in through the window of the humidity crib because I couldn't hold her, couldn't do anything. And she held my little finger all night. She would not let it go. She just wanted to be close, have some sort of connection. One stage through that night, I had fallen asleep with my arm in through the hole, and got woken up then by a nurse because my arm had gone blue because I'd been putting pressure on it. And that sort of started out mine and her close relationship that we had up until recent times. So after we sorted out the oxygen issues, she had low blood sugars. They couldn't maintain them. They had a lot of issues with keeping her blood sugars up. She had low blood sugars, hypoglycemia. She was left in the HDU unit at the Royal Children's. Their level of care left a little bit to be desired. She had a couple of hypoglycemic attacks because she wasn't fed on time or kept warm. My ex's mother had caused a few issues and told some lies and said that we were drug addicts, which we weren't, and that some of her issues may be because she's a drug dependent baby. So we were told she was given a drug to stop fitting, because they saw her eyes flickering and thought she was having a fit. Turns out, when I found out in later years, that they'd actually given her 3 times the adult dose of a drug dependency drug Phenobub that they give to babies. That put Tashi into a coma. That put her, basically wouldn't wake up, wouldn't do anything for 3 days. They then noticed that she had a lump on her stomach, and that she then required a bowel resection. So at 3 weeks old, she was rushed in for major surgery, had 10 centimeters of her bowel cut out, and reconnected. Coming into recovery, my ex was asked to come into the room and say goodbye because she had an allergic reaction to something. They still couldn't tell us. They believe it was latex, but in subsequent times we haven't had an issue. That was pretty horrific, because they would only let one parent in, so even if she had went, I wouldn't have been allowed to go in and say goodbye. But it was horrific for the ex because she had to go in and say goodbye to her baby girl, who pulled through. She's a fighter. She's definitely a fighter. Very strong-willed, very great, big personality, very beautiful soul. Who won't give up. She just keeps fighting. So we did the hypoglycemia. They kept her in for ages after everything had settled down. She had a stoma for a period, I think it was a week. Because she had issues there, they had to close the stoma very quickly, which is where they have the two ends of the intestine poking out of the skin. They then rejoined it. She now has a beautiful scar that runs right across her body. Never fully healed. It was a pretty rushed surgery, so I think they took as much care as they could, but her survival was their primary concern. So after that, they kept her in 6.5 months. We spent at the Royal Hospital. They kept changing one of her medications. They'd say, okay, she's got to be on this dosage for a week so we can check that she's going to be okay. On the day, they go, oh, tomorrow you can take her home, yay. Everything's looking great, she's doing fine. And then on that day we were supposed to take her home, they changed her medication again. Now, after about, I think it was nearly 2 months of this happening to us, getting our hopes up that we were going to get to go home and get our little family going, because remember, we already had our 2-year-old son sitting at home. Life was hard. I had to quit work. We had no money. We were really struggling. And when the doctor was questioned and we pulled him aside and said, why do you keep changing your medications on the day? He was probably a little bit too honest for his own good. He turned around and he said that it's because they didn't trust that my ex would look after her. I got a little bit angry, probably the closest I would have come to fully losing my temper in my life, and the doctor saw it and got the fuck out of there really quickly. After that meeting, we went and rang the local hospital where our son was born, and we knew a head nurse there. So we rang her and said, look, one of two things are happening. You either have an ambulance here to take her to you, and you guys can continue her care, or we're taking her home, and we won't ever come back to a hospital. So half an hour later, there was an ambulance there. They picked up our daughter and we went to this other hospital. During that time, we were only there 2 weeks, but in that time, they turned around and tried to tell us that the best option for us was long-term foster care, effectively give our daughter away. And we're like, this is disgusting. At least let us take her home, see how we go. If we struggle with her care, we'll come back, we'll tell you. We're not going to sit there and battle it out if we can't handle it. What I will tell you, and it's one of my biggest praises I've got for my ex, she's a fucking good mum. She did the best set of care notes. Every medication was done on time, every feed was done on time, she was kept warm. My daughter thrived under her care. And that's the only way to describe it, she thrived. We didn't need to be at the hospital, we didn't have to go back. We'd go back for pediatrician checks, and they were like, wow, you're doing a fantastic job, you got better notes than the nurses had in the hospital. The level of care is higher than any hospital could provide for her, so well done. During those pediatrician appointments is where we found out her list of disabilities, and it was a list. The hypoglycemia petered out over time because she was getting regular feeds and she was kept warm and her body was getting better at maintaining it. Her bowel was always soft, but that was the biggest side effect of the surgery she'd had. But that's when we found out she's blind. She had a condition called optic nerve hyposplasia, where the wiring between the eyes and the brain didn't form. So she was going to be permanently blind, which was a bit of a blow, quite sad. We had a beautiful girl and we just did what we had to do for her. She was also had a condition called cerebral palsy, which is a brain condition existing from birth, and global developmental delay. So even at 24, she's probably only about the size of a 12, 13-year-old. Has a lot of other things going on that aren't normal, but she's gorgeous, she's Tash, wouldn't have her any other way. But knowing that she had those disabilities, we knew we were in for a challenge. For me, it became my life goal to work, provide, and to ensure that that poor little girl never ended up in a home because of her disabilities and the way she was non-verbal, couldn't speak and reiterate what she wanted. I knew that she would just be drugged up and left in a corner until she passed. And I was never going to let that happen. Pretty much the reason that me and the ex stuck it out together is because that was both our goals. Again, I'm going to say it again just so I'm clear that she was a fantastic mother and she did everything she had to do for her kids to give them the best possible life. Even when life was really tough, she still made that a priority. She was a good mum. She's a good mum. Tashi grew into a happy girl. She didn't know any different. She'd never experienced sight. She didn't know that she was different to any, or she knew she was different to everybody else, but she haven't experienced anything different. So she was happy. We gave her the greatest life. Made her into a bit of a rough nut. In the regards that her brother and her would wrestle, and she loved being thrown around, and for blind kids it's unheard of. It's also unheard of for blind kids to love roller coasters and thrill rides, but she did. As long as I was beside her, she felt safe, secure, and she would enjoy the adrenaline rush and the G-forces. She absolutely loves jet boat riding now. Thinks it's the best. As we were just going through life, we heard about a treatment that was happening in China that could potentially regrow her optic nerve and give her a chance to see or have some form of vision. So my ex busted her ass. Over 6 months, she raised enough money for us to all go over to China and spend 8 weeks there and have 8 injections of this treatment. In the time we were there, we watched her pupils go from shining a bright light and they would dilate when they shouldn't, to after the 3rd treatment, you'd shine a bright light in her eye and they would contract. So there was obviously something getting back to the brain, and the brain was telling the iris to shut, which gave us hope, a lot of hope. She knew when the light was being turned off, and she started to do a lot of things that we hadn't seen her do. Like, what's her first words? Happened when we were in China, and it was naughty daddy. And daddy became the words that you heard out of her mouth all the time. If she wasn't happy, she screamed out, daddy, 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 daddy. So out of that, she started to be able to feed herself with assistance. She could walk upstairs and stuff by holding on to you and just walking behind you. We saw a lot of development, and the big one was knowing night from day. That was awesome. The hospitals here didn't recognise the treatment. It was stem cells from umbilical cord blood cells that were deprogrammed. It wasn't a treatment that the Australian doctors believed in or offered, or could tell us worked or didn't work. So when we got back and we asked to run a test to see what her brain was actually getting so we could help develop her vision, they weren't going to do it. It was too expensive, waste of resources. It's not going to change her prognosis. basically fobbed us off. So all we did was just keep working with her and trying to find ways to help her develop and grow. And she did. We worked out pretty quickly that Tashi knows what's going on. She's very much there in that beautiful little head of hers. You can have a conversation if you can read the non-verbal cues. And she tells you if she's not happy about something, and she'll tell you if she's happy about something. She's just a beautiful little soul who just kept fighting through every little challenge that was put in her way. And her mum fought a lot of challenges and battles to give her that opportunity. She gave her the best possible schools. She organised as much fights we had with disability services and then NDIS. She battles and battles and battles and gives that kid everything she can possibly get for her. Again, acts as a good mum. So life went on. I worked. The ex did what she could at home. Tashi continued to grow and be a happy girl. We found some really cool carers, really wonderful people that really worked with her and helped her quite a lot through her life. One she's got at the moment is pretty fucking A1. In her third session of working with my daughter, all I wanted for my daughter was to have a female friend around her age that she could do normal teenage girl things with. And I watched this carer one day when I was walking past the room, sitting there on her phone watching TikTok. I had no drama with that. But she was sitting beside Tashi explaining what was going on in the TikToks, and they were having a laugh and a giggle together, and it just made me cry. That was before it came out. It just made me so happy to see my beautiful girl having a friend. She might be even being paid to be there, but I actually think this carer would do it for nothing if that was required. So that gave me a bit of faith. Tashi's living her best life. The challenges she's got, the issues she's had, the people she's got around her make her have every opportunity to live her best life and do things that normal people do and experiences that normal people have. And it's beautiful to see. It gives me a lot of confidence that I'm not there anymore. I'm not there to see my daughter. I'm missing her like you wouldn't believe. It's the longest I've ever not seen her, but I can't deal with the ex after coming out and the things that had happened in our relationship. I can't do it. Maybe in time we can organise something, but I do want to see my baby girl, and I would love to give her another hug. She loves me, I love her, and it's just hurting me as much as I'm sure it's hurting her not to have any contact. So that's the story of my little girl. It's probably one of my biggest regrets with transitioning is that I don't have that relationship with her anymore. At the moment I've got to choose me and what I need. I'm doing it. So Tashi, if anyone plays this for you, just know Daddy loves you, baby girl. Always will. Miss you so much. I can't wait till the day I get to have you in my arms again. Thanks for listening. See you guys on the next video.